Good day, everyone. Welcome to Lecture 4 of our Microeconomics course. I'm Dr. Magda Mustafa Sadiq, Associate Professor of Economics at the National University Sudan, Faculty of Administrative Science. In today's lecture, we will discuss two important concepts in consumer theory: the budget constraints and consumer equilibrium. So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain what a budget constraint is, and you can construct a budget equation, interpret the budget line, understand the properties of the budget line, and explain consumer equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. Let us begin by introduction. Every consumer has unlimited wants but limited income because income is scarce. We cannot buy everything we desire. Therefore, consumers must make choices. Economics assumes that consumers behave rationally. They allocate their limited income among different goods and services in order to obtain the highest possible level of utility or satisfaction, which economists call utility. The concept of budget constraints and consumer equilibrium help us understand these decisions are made. What do we mean by budget constraint? A budget constraint represents all combinations of goods that a consumer can purchase with a given income and given prices. It depends on three factors. First, the consumer income. Second, the price of good X. Third, the price of good Y. So the budget constraints simply tell us the limit of a consumer's purchasing power. How we can construct a budget constraint equation? Suppose a consumer purchases only two goods, good X and good Y. The budget equation is income equals the price of good X multiplied by the quantity of good X plus the price of good Y multiplied by the quantity of good Y. This equation tells us that total spending cannot exceed the consumer income. Let us take an example. Let us look at this very simple example. Suppose the consumer has an income of $120. The price of good X is $20. The price of good Y is $10. Using the budget equation, we can calculate different combinations of the two goods. For example, if the consumer buys 0 units of good X, they can purchase 12 units of good Y as it appears in this table. If they buy 2 units of good X, they can afford 8 units of good Y. If they buy 4 units of good X, they can afford only 4 units of good Y. Each combination uses the entire income of $120. Try to do it by yourself. Try to multiply good X by price X and good Y by price Y at each combination. Now we can turn these equations and this table into a budget line. And the budget line is a graphical representation of all affordable combinations of good X and good Y. Every point on the line represents combinations that exactly exhaust the consumer's income. So the budget line is one of the most important concepts in consumer theory because it illustrates the trade-off between the two goods. The properties of the budget line. The budget line has several important characteristics. First, it's a straight line because prices are assumed to remain constant. Second, it slopes downward from left to right. Third, it has a negative slope, meaning that buying more of one good requires buying less of the other. Fourth, every point on the budget line represents full spending of the available income. Fifth, points inside the budget line are affordable because they require less than the available income. Finally, points outside the budget line are unattainable because the consumer does not have sufficient income. Looks here, this is the budget line where the slope of the budget line is equal to negative ratio of the price of good X to the price of good Y. You can see the different combinations from good X and good Y. The first one, when you spend your entire income on good Y, and the last one, when you spend your entire income on good X. The slope is -2 because the slope is equal to minus price Y divided by minus price Y divided by price X. Okay, so economically, this slope represents the opportunity cost. It tells us how many units of good X or good Y must be sacrificed to obtain one additional unit of good X. For example, if the price of good X equal $10 and the price of good Y is $5, the slope becomes -2 because we will divide price X by price Y. And as I told you that the slope measures the opportunity cost of one additional unit of good X in terms of good Y. So this illustration illustrates the concept of opportunity cost. Let us come to the very important concept, the consumer equilibrium. Now let us discuss consumer equilibrium, where consumer equilibrium is a point where a consumer achieves the highest possible level of satisfaction given their income and market price. Graphically, consumer equilibrium occurs where the budget line is tangent to the highest attainable indifference curve. At this point, the consumer cannot increase his satisfaction without increasing income. The conditions for consumer equilibrium, we have 3 conditions must be satisfied. The first one, that the consumer spends all available income. The second, the budget line touches the highest attainable indifference curve. And the third, that the margin rate of substitution, or MRS, is equal to the ratio of prices of the two goods. MRX from X and Y equal price X divided by price Y. So this condition ensures that the consumer has reached the optimal combination of the goods. Now let us interpret this graphically. The straight line, the blue straight line, represents the budget line, and the curved lines, the green ones, IC1, IC2, and IC3 representing different curves, representing different levels of consumer satisfaction. Point E, where IC1 is tangent to the budget line, is a equilibrium point where the consumer consumes 4 units from Y and 4 units from X. At point E, the budget line is tangent to the highest attainable indifference curve, and this means the consumer has maximized utility while staying within the available budget. No other affordable combination provides a higher level of satisfaction. Now let us summarize today's lecture. We learned that the budget constraint shows all affordable combinations of goods. The budget line is a graphical presentation of the budget constraint. Its slope represents opportunity cost. Consumer equilibrium occurs where the budget line is tangent to the highest attainable indifference curve. Finally, the equilibrium condition is that marginal rate of substitution equals to the ratio of the prices of the two goods. This is the interpretation. I hope that the students will solve the attached quiz before we finish. Try answering these questions so it will enrich your understanding for the